Good morning. Thank you for joining. My name is Dan Chamberlain. I'm marketing lead for life sciences at Capgemini. We are pleased to present a webinar on our solutions around SAP for life sciences company. I'm going to introduce the North America Life Sciences lead for Capgemini now. Rob Harsgaard is going to take the lead on this presentation. Rob?
Yeah, thanks very much. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Rob Harsgaard, Vice President and leader of our Life Sciences practice within Capgemini. And I'm pleased to be with you today and be able to present to you our insights related to the industry, specific to medical devices, and what we're doing to address some of those business challenges as it relates to SAP S/4HANA, and as it also relates to the overall intelligent enterprise. And we'll be going over the next hour, a few of us commenting on some of these areas, as well as industry trends that we see going in there. If I wouldn't mind introducing a partner, Carol, who's on the phone from SAP, who will kind of kick it off from her perspective related to industry trends that she sees, and then Sriram Sampath will kick it off from a deep dive into our joint solution and how we go to market related to solving some of these business challenges. So with that, let me turn it over to Carol to kind of kick things off.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Rob, for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here on the webinar with everyone this morning, this afternoon. Really pleasure to talk about our joint approach to the industry. If you go to the next slide, please, Dan. I thought we would start by just talking a little bit about the life sciences trends that we see emerging. We're currently monitoring in the industry, and I'm sure some of these will resonate with everyone on the call. Our partnership between Capgemini and SAP is a long, storied, rich one, with a focus on life science, outcomes for the life science manufacturers, making sure that the patient is central to every activity within the life science organization. And I'm sure Rob and Sriram would join me in saying we're hearing this more and more consistently with customers that we're talking to, is how can I embed the patient evidence, the patient sentiment throughout the entire enterprise. So not just on things that are derived directly from them, but making it really a right-sized up organization with the patient in the driver's seat. And I'm sure we're all really familiar as consumers of the change that the consumer industry went through, I would say probably in the mid-'80s, where all of a sudden the consumer voice became really central. And a lot of that was really driven by the ubiquity of mobile devices. But I think the empowered patient and people taking more control of their own health history, of driving their questions more detailed with their providers, is really changing the whole dynamic. So that right side up organization now with the patient in the driver's seat is certainly prominent through everything throughout the intelligent enterprise. Patient services are transforming at a more rapid rate. We're certainly seeing a lot more transformation in this area than we have over the recent history. And we know that this is the slowest pace of change that we're going to see for the next few years. So what that means is engaging the patient differently and having better analytics to take those insights back through the entire landscape of the intelligent enterprise. And what we see is a lot of med device and pharmaceutical companies actually are changing from a product centricity to more of a service mandate and a service centricity. So really we're looking at what they've traditionally brought to market from a therapy, drug, or device, and trying to say, how can I transition this to be more service oriented to the patient as a whole? And again, that takes a lot of alignment throughout the organization, back to that patient is in the driver's seat kind of mandate and mindset. We're seeing the supply chain, particularly in med device, really represent a dramatic shift. No longer do things have to be dependent and sequential, right? With the nature of IoT and a lot of the more advanced technologies, the interconnectivity and the alerts are really evident every moment in the chain now. And there should never be a delayed shipment. There should never be a manufacturing issue that isn't rectified in real time. So certainly a huge, fantastic time to be a part of the medical device industry with a view on what's happening in the supply chain. And I would just comment as well on the rise of the next-gen therapies, maybe to close this slide and some of the key trends. Certainly in the pharmaceutical space, more of the personalized medicine is emerging, with high price points, of course, but really understanding that the batch size of one, or producing the knee or the hip for me as a patient, again, batch size of one for Carol McKenzie, is here, and it's becoming more of the norm as we go forward. So everything has to shift in support of this patient centricity from a therapy delivery perspective, right? It's no longer large batches or multiple needs that are created. It's changing to shifting to a personalized manufacturing transition. And again, much like the consumer industry that nailed this from a personalized Nikes and personalized M&M's creation perspective, what has to change now throughout the life science supply chain in support of this personalization is nothing short of revolutionary. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Rob to comment then on really what the next slide looks at, or what are some of the pain points in support of these trends that are really changing the industry holistically as we speak. If you'll go to the next slide, Dan, and I'll pass it back to Rob, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Carol. And so just to put a finer point on what you were saying in the previous slide, we do see some key trends, specifically from a med device perspective. As you said, if you're looking at it from med device perspective, we're moving from product centricity to kind of what I call solution centricity, and really being able to encompass and engage clients from a kind of platform solution perspective, as opposed to where from a med device perspective, product was at the center of it. So you have this transformation going on in the med device space, very kind of similar to what you're seeing in pharma as well, around what you commented on from patient centricity perspective. So the three things that I probably would like to leave you with related to industry, med device industry considerations or challenges. And the first would be around connected care. And if you look at it from that perspective, we're really seeing a shift from, the hospital to the home, people taking control of their own treatment, whether it be with devices and the connectivity of those devices, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then really having an integrated approach to doing that. So if there is a product that happens to be out there that's helping them live better lives, it's how do they connect that product back to their care network, including their physicians and those that take care of them. And then you'll also see, from my perspective, a personalized treatment plan that comes into effect. And this is also highlights what Carol was saying previously around, specialty pharma, and the fact that we're doing it both on the med device and pharma side from a very focused approach to solving individuals' needs in the marketplace. The second thing that I wanted to touch upon is really around smart engineering. So we're looking at increased device complexity, right, with the introduction of software and connectivity, as well as looking at portability from a med device perspective. And so it's really interesting to see some of our customers challenge us related to how to help them in those areas. And then also how to reduce the total cost of ownership, because price and pricing for these particular things are of paramount importance to clients and to patients out there. The last that I'll leave you with is around quality assurance and regulatory. It's a global game, as most of us know. We're looking to achieve, and foster global growth, and that means that there are increased regulatory and compliance issues. We see new guidelines and directives every day from MDR or UDI, and so we want to be able to address those as an industry in a global and comprehensive way. So at the center of that, and addressing some of these trends, and then therefore considerations and challenges. Capgemini over time has developed a solution in partnership, direct partnership with SAP, as Carol mentioned at the beginning of the call, for a very long period of time. It's not something that we just decided to do recently, and it's evolved for a long time, and we call that our Life Sciences Path solution. And it really addresses the industry challenges of life sciences, and it's built upon best practices that we have from an experience perspective out there in the marketplace, both in pharmaceutical, biotechnology, medical device, med tech space. And so what we're going to do today is to take you through a little bit about our partnership, how we've developed this solution called Life Sciences Path, how it ties to the overall intelligent enterprise, and give you some practical experience of what we've done from being in the field and having the quote-unquote battle scars, if you will. So I'm going to introduce Sriram Sampath, who's a vice president within Capgemini, to talk through this partnership that we have and the experience that we have jointly and how it's underpinned by Life Sciences Path and the overall intelligent enterprise. Sriram, I'll turn it over to you at this point.
All right. Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, team. Sriram Sampath. I'm a VP within the SAP practice. I focus on SAP-led transformations, and as an organization, we have deep expertise and experience across the entire spectrum of life sciences. When I talk about that, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, biopharma as well, and full biologics. So this solution that we're going to talk about has been in existence since 2007 when we formally released it in the market, and we've been driving this as one of our key accelerators to drive large SAP-led transformations. So Dan, if you can go to the next slide. So really, as you guys are looking at an existing customer base, many of you guys have gone through an SAP-led transformation over the last decade or so. And in many instances, you haven't fully depreciated that investment, and you're looking at how do I get to S4, take advantage of in-memory computing and all the goodness that you get with a platform that is fundamentally a game changer, a step up from the ERP world. So obviously you're looking at how do I do a technical migration, potentially if it is something that is a relatively recent implementation, or there is your organization has gone through a lot of M&A activities that warrants a business process optimization type of an approach, or there are aspects of the solution that you haven't fully taken advantage of that you want to add components to your existing SAP solution, or really step it up to the full S4 type of an environment. We are seeing this a lot in the market, and we want to really help you drive through this thinking using what we call as Life Sciences Path, which is for a larger organization, it ends up being a good starting point. For smaller companies, we want to approach it more like an appliance that you really adopt, consistent with SAP's Activate approach. Is the way we see it, and this will form, or this will become the backbone of the digital core that drives the intelligent enterprise. Right, over to the next slide, please. So in terms of Capgemini and the type of work that we have done across pharmaceutical and medical devices, you see the list of clients there. All of these have pretty large SAP footprint in it, and we were part of those transformations, and many of the things that you see are learnings that got encapsulated into add-on functionality over and above standard S4. All right, over to the next slide, please. So really, to build on what Carol and Rob were saying, the Life Sciences Path will serve as a digital core. You build around that functionality. It is on S4 1809. For smaller organizations, we would like to really deploy it as an appliance, in the sense that we can literally import and export the solution set into your ecosystem, and you can build off of that. And we drive this through what we call as a design by exception, which is really tell me why this won't work for you type of an approach. So that you're really focused on what is that unique differentiation that is special to your organization and spend time on it, as opposed to trying to address some of the basic block and tackle issues in the medical devices space. So, and then obviously you can plug into all the other aspects of IoT, analytics, AI, machine learning that is inherent to the S4 platform that you can build off of. There are some use cases that you can leverage coming out of this as well, right? Over to the next slide, please. So what does this come with? So it's really, it comes with the core S4 functionality within finance to manage. Some organizations call it record to report, but all the processes within finance to manage, all the processes which are customer facing, order to cash, procure to pay within S4, demand to supply that covers from planning to manufacturing and settlement, and then inventory management could be inventory management or WMS type of solution. And then what is more important is the solution comes with a set of user requirement specifications that drive your validation, so that we even come with a typical validation plan that you can start as a building block, and then you can customize it consistent with how you look at computer software validation. So this comes with a prepackaged set of URSs, along with the trace metrics and the full life cycle test scenarios and test scripts and so on, that you can use as a jump start as you launch into this program. All right. Over to the next slide, please. So really, I wanted to give you a most recent go live that we did with S4 1610. This was at Cantel Medico. They are an endoscopy business. They actually make the equipment that goes to driving the endoscopy procedures. In addition to that, they have a service business that services their own equipment as well as their competitors' equipment. So there's a big service management component to it. And then there is also components that they sell in the endoscopy devices itself. So it's a fully integrated solution or a company that focuses in the endoscopy business. It's about less than $1 billion publicly traded. So we went with S4 HANA 1610 release of Life Sciences Path. We went live earlier this year. They are going through the next phase. The company has been going through some inorganic growth as well. So the next phase is lining up for some more deployments to other divisions that is part of the ecosystem. So really, we didn't have to do a whole lot of any customization at all. They literally adopted the S4 solution out of the box. The few areas where we had to add some capability was around device history record, because we wanted to get some of the information they have at the plant floor level, and then they had integration to Salesforce that we had to do. But for the most part, within the SAP world or the S4 world, it was literally an appliance that they could adopt with very little customization to drive this program. All right, over to the next slide, please. Okay, in addition to the core S4 solution, what we have built are things around device history report that looks at some of the serial numbers as it is manufactured, and then you can track it along with some of the transactional values within SAP, so you can generate a full device history report. Then there are manufacturer at risk scenario. Essentially, think of it this way: if there are some components within the assembly process that are not entirely up to spec, but they're still within the tolerance levels, you can still continue to manufacture through a trace matrix that you can do the approval further down in the manufacturing process. Then there is a batch record genealogy check. This is an enhancement that really tells you the genealogy information through multiple levels of bills of material within the manufacturing process. And then quality issue management, which is a product that SAP sells, which is a bolt-on that we can integrate to from S4. It allows you to do some of the basic CAPA processes within the solution. Then trunk stock management is something that is very relevant for the medical devices space. There is some functionality that is being configured and built on top of it. And then batch and serial number traceability is another one that we have some capability that has been added. And then expiring materials you can manage with some added functionality that has been added. And of course, finally, shelf life expiration date. And one important point that I want to highlight is this can support a multi-mode manufacturing. So what we mean by that is it can do process manufacturing as well as discrete manufacturing. So typically, you take pharma, it tends to be process or batch manufacturing. In many cases, it is outsourced. Whereas in a medical devices world, you have both process and discrete manufacturing. So you have the ability to go repetitive manufacturing if it is a periodic, it's a same part that continuously gets manufactured, or it is an engineer to order type of scenario or an assembled to order scenario. So all that is covered. And then you have the ability to integrate to a contract manufacturer type of a scenario as well. We have capabilities for a tax efficient supply chain that we typically see in Europe with plants abroad functionality that's activated in the solution as well. All right. If you go to the next slide, please. So we'll spend a little bit time on what we see for customers who are currently using SAP. They haven't fully depreciated, they are partially depreciated, they're looking at S4. So we have a pretty standardized assessment process that we can bring to bear. And life sciences path will be, this is standard out of the box S4. Why doesn't this work for you? So you can easily disposition any kind of gaps that you have in your current ECC environment, what has been remediated in the S4 world as well. So you can actually see the solution as you go through this assessment exercise. You can go to the next slide. So as I indicated, multiple ways to look at the roadmap. Obviously, you want to look at if your organization has gone through a lot of M&A activities, this may be a right opportunity to see if there is process standardization, optimization type of analysis that we want to do. Then the second aspect could be there are elements of the solution that you haven't fully taken advantage of. Then there is definitely, this is a right opportunity to look at how can I get my business better and more digital ready would be another area. And then what we are also seeing is companies are looking at a cloud migration as another element of telling an overall business case story that can make this thing more compelling, in addition to process optimization, instance standardization or rationalization, if you will, along with the cloud migration, puts a very compelling business case that we can assemble very quickly, complemented with the life sciences path as an asset to drive this type of thinking. All right. If you go to the next slide, please. So we have a very formalized roadmap that we can take you through in terms of how we drive this assessment for you. I mean, it goes through the standards analysis tools that SAP provides. In addition to that, we have built pre-configured scenarios and what are the typical KPI and business case improvements that you can expect to gain. And obviously, it needs to be customized for your current situation. And then we look at the deployment options, which really looks at is a technical conversion option. Do we want to do a re-implementation because you have multiple instances with some element of brownfield lift and shift of key innovations that you've currently done in your ecosystem? Potentially a central finance type of an approach could be something that we want to explore. And then what we will do is take you through a very methodical, fact-based type of analysis that can tell you what is the cost going to be in each of these options, where is the business case that is going to really make sense for you to launch into a program of such a scale. So this is something we have done multiple times before. We work very closely with SAP's value engineering team as well. We leverage some of the assets that SAP brings to the table so that we come to you guys with a cohesive plan that we can leverage to really launch into an S4 journey. All right, if you go to the next slide. Alluded to this, you can do the build out, Dan. Okay. So new implementation, obviously multiple instances. If you want to look at S4 as the right thing to do, then you have an option of really going on-premise, or you can take advantage of SAP Single Tenant Edition, which is the on-prem solution offered to you on a perpetual license on the HEC cloud, or you can choose to use a different cloud option. But those are two options that we can explore. Then the system conversion is something that we're seeing for companies that have recently moved to ECC, and they're generally happy with their current implementation. Is a technical conversion a viable option? We are seeing a lot of that in Europe, more so than we are seeing in the stateside, but that's definitely a viable option. Then the landscape transformation is one where you have multiple ERP systems that you want to converge, and then within that there is a nuance to the main organization or main large part of the business running in S4 on-prem solution, and potentially some of the satellite locations looking at the S4 public cloud solution, almost like a buy-sell type of arrangement for sales offices in remote parts of the world. That's a viable architecture as well. And then what we see is central finance, where you have large enterprise, multiple ERPs all over the world. We're seeing a lot of central finance type of a approach where we want to get immediate value coming out of a S4 program and then build from it. So that's kind of what we have from an overall outcome standpoint. Then if you look at the next slide, tells you what it typically takes to go through this assessment. What we have is a three-step approach, what we call as a scan phase, which could be a couple of weeks. And then we have a focus phase. We look at some of the elements in your current ECC environment, do a code review, do what functionality you have, what are the big customizations and so on. And then really look at how do we tell a story to launch into an S4 program. And the final phase would be a focus act phase, which would be around coming up with a cost estimate, a business case, and how do we launch the program. In many cases, this 6 week exercise is complemented with a business case type of an analysis exercise that is optionally done, depending on where you are in this journey of building a business case to launch a program to get to S4. All right, if you go to the next slide. So really from a wrap-up standpoint, we are eager to take this conversation to the next level of detail at Sapphire. Please reach out to us. Looking forward to having you spend some focused time with us, and we'll take you through some of this and some real scenarios that you can actually look and see. With that, I will open up to Rob and Carol, and maybe have some time for question and answers. So,
Thanks, Sriram. So if you have questions, there is a question box you can type them into in the window when you signed in. So if you have a question for our presenters, please feel free to enter one in. We have had a couple come in during the presentation. So Sriram, you mentioned cloud implementation, both in the Cantel story and the single tenant cloud with SAP. One of the concerns that comes up obviously is around GxP validation and compliance. Can you talk about how Life Sciences Path and SAP in the cloud support validation and compliance?
Yeah, good question. So at Cantel, they chose to do the on-prem version. They went with AWS, and AWS and both HEC, they have FDA validation certifications as well, but we put a layer on top of AWS. So it is fully validated. They are a class 2 medical device company. So it's come a long way since the initial worries of validation being on a cloud solution, but it is, you can do the IQ, PQ and all that very clearly. And we have some layers on top of the standard stack of AWS or Azure that we did. At Cantel, as an example, it went live on AWS with our validation layer on top of it in terms of pure, what I would call as infrastructure management type of layer. And then we had the S4 Life Sciences on top of it. So we've done few of these already, and SAP has more references in the validated environment space.
Great, thanks. So we talked about the intelligent enterprise, SAP in the life sciences industry, and then how life sciences path is an accelerator. You talked a bit about some of the processes that it supports, but what does it really do? What does it really enable from a business standpoint for an organization implementing SAP, whether greenfield or brownfield, to benefit them from a business standpoint?
Good question. So what we have typically seen is using a life sciences path solution, you get significant acceleration, anywhere from 40 to 50% effort reduction during the front end of the explore phase, and then even through the realize phase. I would say there is 20 to 30% reduction in effort. But if you stayed close to standard functionality, the overall elapsed time significantly comes down. And elapsed time is largely mandated by how big an organization you are and how quickly you can mobilize around it. And then really the philosophy of adopting standard. If you subscribe to that, we can get to this digital platform as quickly as six months to 7 months with a significant functionality that is ready to go, along with some of the innovations that we have around AI machine learning that inherently comes with S4 and things that we have seen in the market that we have built on top of it. So that's the value. So you can sweat through, you don't have to sweat through the basic things. It's there very quickly. You can get to the S4 platform and then build from it, build on top of it, so that you are ready to take full advantage of the S4 platform.
Okay. We have not had any additional questions come in. Rob, Carol, Sriram, any closing remarks you want to share? All right. As Sriram mentioned, Sapphire is coming up. It's right around the corner. I'm sure some of you will be there. Please track us down at Sapphire. We will be at the Life Sciences Special Interest activity during the week as well. So find us on the floor and track us down at that reception. And we look forward to seeing you all there. Have a great day and thank you for attending.
Thank you, team.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.